You get up. You walk into the kitchen for something. You arrive, stand there for a second, and your brain hands you absolutely nothing. Not a clue. Whatever you needed is gone, and the only thing left is a faint, mildly insulting sense that you used to know. You probably blame this on being tired, or getting older, or having too many tabs open in your head. Here's the thing. None of that is what's actually happening. What just happened to you has a name. It's been studied in actual labs since at least 2011, and it reveals something genuinely strange about how your memory is built. It's not a continuous recording. It's chopped into pieces. And the walk from your couch to your kitchen just triggered the exact mechanism that does the chopping. Here's what's interesting before we even get to the research. This doesn't happen randomly. It's not that you forget things every 10 steps you take. You can walk the length of a football field in the same room and be fine. But cross a threshold, a doorway specifically, and the odds of losing your train of thought spike immediately. That specificity is the whole clue. If forgetting were just about time passing or distance walked, doorways wouldn't matter more than any other few seconds of your life. But they clearly do. Which means your brain isn't just quietly leaking memory the way a bucket leaks water. Something about walking through a doorway specifically is actively doing this to you. On purpose, in a sense. We'll get to why in a minute, because the why is the actual interesting part. In 2011, a cognitive psychologist named Gabriel Radvansky at the University of Notre Dame ran an experiment that was almost insultingly simple. Participants stood in a virtual environment, picked up a virtual object, and carried it either across a room or through a doorway into a new room before being asked to recall it. Same task, same amount of walking roughly, same amount of time. The only difference was whether a doorway was involved. The results weren't subtle. People were consistently, measurably worse at recalling the object right after walking through a doorway than after walking the same distance within a single room. Radvansky ran it again in real physical space, not just virtual, to make sure it wasn't some quirk of the simulation. Same result. He called it the location updating effect. Everyone else immediately started calling it the doorway effect, because that's just a better name and, honestly, fair. This wasn't people are forgetful. This was a repeatable, triggerable event. You could cause it on command, in a lab, just by making someone walk through a door. Which raises the actual question, what is a doorway doing to your brain that a hallway isn't? The explanation comes from something called event segmentation theory, developed largely by psychologist Jeffrey Sachs at Washington University in St. Louis. The theory argues that your brain doesn't experience your day as one continuous stream. It can't. That would be an unmanageable amount of undifferentiated information. Instead, your brain constantly chops your experience into discrete chunks called event models. Making coffee is an event. The commute is an event. The meeting is an event. Each one gets its own mental folder loaded with the context relevant to it. Where you are, what you're doing, what you're holding, what you were about to do next. And here's the part that matters. Your brain needs a signal to know when one event ends and the next one begins. It uses a few: a change in goal, a change in activity, a change in people involved. But one of the strongest, most reliable signals it uses is a change in physical location. Specifically, crossing a boundary. A doorway is the cleanest, most unambiguous boundary your environment offers. It's not gradual like a hallway. It's binary. You're in the room or you're not. Your brain treats it almost exactly like a hard cut in a film. This scene is over, archive it, load the next one. And whatever you were holding in working memory, the thing you got up to retrieve, was filed under the event model of the room you just left. The new room doesn't come loaded with that file. You have to go dig it back out, and sometimes it just doesn't come. Here's where it stops being a quirky fact and starts being genuinely strange. If this were purely physical, your legs moving, your inner ear detecting a change in space, you'd expect it to require actually walking through a real doorway. It doesn't. Researchers ran the same experiment in fully virtual environments, where the doorway was nothing but pixels on a screen, and the participant's body never moved through any real physical threshold at all. The effect still showed up. People still forgot more after crossing a virtual doorway than after crossing the same virtual distance without one. That's a significant tell. It means the forgetting isn't triggered by your body's movement through space. It's triggered by your brain's interpretation of a boundary being crossed, a cognitive event, not a physical one. Your brain doesn't need you to actually walk anywhere. It just needs to believe a scene changed, which means the doorway was never really the cause. It's just the most obvious, physically visible trigger for something your brain is doing constantly, for reasons that have nothing to do with architecture at all. This is why the forgetting feels so specific and so sudden. You're not losing information gradually the way you'd lose the thread of a boring lecture. One moment, the object of your errand is fully loaded and available. You cross the threshold. The next moment, the folder it was filed under has been closed, and the new room opened an empty one in its place. It also explains why walking back into the original room sometimes brings the memory flooding back immediately. You haven't recovered the thought through effort. You've just re-entered the event model it was filed under. The room did the remembering. You didn't. And it explains why this happens to genuinely everyone, regardless of age, sleep, or how with it you feel that day. This was never a personal failing. It's an operating rule. Here's the part almost nobody sits with long enough. This isn't a flaw in your memory. It's a deliberate feature of how your memory has to work if it's going to function at all. If your brain kept every detail from every room, every conversation, every errand permanently loaded and equally accessible all at once, you wouldn't have a sharper memory. You'd have an unusable one. A mind cluttered with the mental equivalent of 40 open browser tabs from 3 hours ago, all still demanding attention. Event segmentation is your brain's way of closing tabs. It aggressively archives what's no longer relevant to the current scene, specifically so the current scene isn't buried under the last one. Forgetting why you walked into the kitchen isn't your memory failing. It's your memory succeeding at its actual job, which was never remember everything forever. It was always stay usable, one event at a time. The doorway didn't break anything. It just showed you, for one disorienting second, the filing system working exactly as designed. So next time it happens, and it will happen again today, probably more than once, you can skip the part where you feel scattered or old or distracted. None of that is what's going on. What's actually going on is that your brain just performed a scene cut. It closed one event, opened another, and briefly misplaced the one piece of information that hadn't been given a home in the new room yet. That's not a malfunction. That's the system doing, thousands of times a day, invisibly, exactly what it evolved to do: keep you from drowning in the room you already left. You didn't forget. You just walked into a new scene before the old one finished being filed away.